All the doctors were like, "That's it, man. This is your life now. You're not gonna be able to use the bathroom anymore. You're not gonna be able to walk anymore. You're not gonna be able to do any of that stuff anymore. Yeah. So you've got to get comfortable with this." And I woke up in the hospital. This is the absolute truth. You can make all kinds of assumptions. At the hospital, they said I probably had a syncope event. I fainted. I don't know what the heck happened, to be honest. I might have even tried to commit suicide.
So you fell from ninth floor to third floor.
Yeah.
So how many feet was that?
Was that like 60 feet or something like that?
60
foot
feet?
fall? Yeah, 60 foot fall.
Jesus.
Really, I have no idea how, but here I am, And I think that was a big part of this new place I'm in, sort of realizing, dude, that's some heavy shit right there. Like, you're not even supposed to be here right now. It showed me that the worst has happened to you. You're still here. If anything, now you have time on your hands to think about why you love life so much. In the corporate world, there's this concept of golden handcuffs. The harder you work, the more you get promoted, the more money you make. But also the larger these handcuffs. You can't let go of them, because the moment you let go of them, now you feel like you're naked, that you no longer have everything you had. The most basic reason, the most fundamental reason you're doing anything you're doing is for love. Love of something. Love of yourself, love of family, love of the things you may be able to provide your family at someday, love of the way you may feel being able to provide for your family in that way. I think love is the ultimate reason we do anything.
What is up, everyone? My name is Aaron Darko. Welcome back to another episode of the Aaron Darko Show. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Dale Blackman.
Thank you so much, man.
And Dale, what doctors call him is an incomplete paraplegic.
That's correct. That's correct.
And we met recently at Jiu Jitsu. And my training partner, my friend, my coach, Justin, he was like, "Hey, we got a guy who's in a wheelchair coming along to training, and he's a brown belt." And I was like, "Huh?" And he's gonna come train. I'm like, "What the hell? He's in a wheelchair and he's gonna come train jiu-jitsu?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, so I went to training and I met you. And at first, I thought he was playing a prank on me. I thought it was Will Smith. Like, I literally thought I was rolling with
Really?
Will Smith. Yeah.
That's crazy. I think Will Smith is a little more handsome. I'm handsome, but I got to say, I understand why ladies love Will Smith, so it's all right.
Yes.
I'll take that compliment.
Yeah. So in this episode, just in case you're listening, what you're going to learn in this episode is really your worldview, right? Like, because when I met you for the first time, like, you made such an impression on me and everyone at the training class because of your energy and your vibe and just how you are, like your character, right? So that really shone through.
I enjoy life.
Yeah. So that's exactly why I want to bring you on, because there's a lot of people out there that, for whatever reason, maybe they're depressed or they're just not enjoying life, and you had a near fatal accident.
Absolutely.
And you have this mindset. So I just want to bring you on to share with people your mindset and how you see, like, going through life and having these obstacles and these setbacks, and how you can overcome it, and how you have that strong mindset to do that.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's weird. It's not even like a conscious thought or anything. At this point, it's just my way of life now. I don't think about it. I go someplace. I'm just me. I want to see the best in everyone when I meet them. So if I meet you for the first time, this is what you're going to get. Doesn't mean like I agree with everyone and I get along with everyone, but I always try to understand why is it I might not get along with someone, before I kind of throw the relationship away. But I like to wear like this invisible crown. It sounds strange. It doesn't mean that I feel like I'm better than anyone or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I give people the opportunity to help if they want to help, because some people don't know how to help. So, if I might mention something that, I need help with, and then if someone is interested, like, "Oh, do you need some help?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure, you can help me." So it's just like feeling like everyone is here wanting to support. And if not, it's okay, But yeah, I like to kind of wear that like invisible cloak or whatever to say, I know who I am at the end of the day. So yeah, that's kind of, that's how I approach any initial conversation.
Yeah, so man, so many different ways you can go here. So
First of all, I'm gonna cut me short anytime, because I'll keep talking and talking. You're gonna have me like.
So I guess what people want to know, if they're listening, because people are busy. So take us back to that moment, and we'll go from there, right? Sure. So, and just take us back to the moment where you broke your back, right?
Sure. So, and actually, this is a wild story. It goes very, very deep. But it was my birthday, and my birthday 4 years ago, August 11th, 2018. I was having some difficulty with my business, and I was looking for ways to, improve rate of return and all that kind of good stuff. And I was having a lot of anxiety about, well, if I can't make, my payments or whatever, my business is going to go under. So I was looking for like a way to get centered. So I was doing a lot of meditation at that time. On my birthday, I went to the beach to do meditation, like I usually will do around my birthday. And I was in the hotel room. I had a massage. I was really just getting into the zone of, where is my anxiety coming from? If the business doesn't work out, there's always something else I can do. At some point while I was meditating, and I was, how do you say, I was in like a holistic mood, really centering myself with all of the different challenges that life was bringing me. And at some point I started to have a really difficult time with my anxieties and whether or not I could actually make it. I had a family to support, all these types of things. And I figured I'd go to sleep because I couldn't handle all of the negative thoughts I was having. And I woke up in the hospital. This is the absolute truth. You can make all kinds of assumptions. At the hospital, they said I probably had a syncope event. I fainted. I don't know what the heck happened, to be honest. I might have even tried to commit suicide. But I'll tell you, I never had any sort of suicidal feelings or thoughts or anything up to that time. But I woke up in the hospital 2 weeks later. I was in a coma, have no memory of how I actually fell or anything like that. But it was off a 9th floor balcony. I fell onto a 3rd floor parking garage. And this is out in Clearwater, where I used to live.
How tall is that? So you fell from ninth floor to 3rd floor.
Yeah.
So how many feet was that?
Was that like 60 feet or something like that?
60
foot
feet?
Fall? Yeah, 60 foot fall.
Jesus.
And only my back was broken. Well, not only my back. I'm surprised I didn't, I don't know if I had any, head injuries. Maybe that explains why, I'm always happy. Is maybe because I, took a knock on the head. But I'm joking about that. But really, I have no idea how. But here I am, And I think that was a big part of this new place I'm in, sort of realizing, dude, that's some heavy shit right there. Like, you're not even supposed to be here right now. It should be done. It should be a wrap, But even after that happened, I still had not hit sort of the rock bottom of everything, because at that point I was still looking for solutions. I was not suicidal or anything like that. It was in the hospital, really, maybe about, the 3-month mark or so, when I realized, okay, dude, all the gifts that you had, or the gifts that I thought I had at that time, it's not true, but at the time I thought it was true. The gifts that you had, you don't have anymore. Your physical ability isn't there anymore. You can't do the stuff that you used to do. Pretty much, you're not going to be able to keep your business going. Your life is pretty much done, at this point, is what I was feeling. At that point, I started using substances to try to get me out of that place mentally. And it was an experience I had with mushrooms that really kind of shook me out of this zone of, woe is me, I'm the victim. And to this day, I don't know how that happened or whatever, but it showed me that the worst has happened to you. You're still here. If anything, now you have time on your hands to think about why you love life so much. And I haven't looked back. It's not that I haven't made mistakes since that point, but each day along the way, it gets easier and easier to process all of this. It's all perspective based. What are you feeling in this moment right now? You can feel a number of things. If I'm sitting here right now, I can tell you, I might feel a little itch on my left calf, and I'm happy about that because I couldn't feel it before, even though it's a little bit of an irritant. It's a good irritant. It's like, oh, damn, my leg is itching. Oh, shit, yeah, my leg is itching. That's fucking great for me. Each day is like that. There's, even the pain is like, dude, yeah, it hurts. Oh, shit, it hurts. Fuck, yeah. You know, it's, how do you get past that and see it hurts, but you know what? That hurt feels good, and I can do something good with that hurt now, you know? It's something to get to. You just don't get there. You got to bridge the gap from where you are. But if I can do it, other people can do it. You know, people who have more resources than I do. I really have very little, but I'm pretty much doing anything I want right now. I mean, I've got challenges like anyone else, but they don't hold me back, you know?
But when you woke up, so you've just fallen, right? You didn't even know that you fell. You were in the hotel room, right?
Yeah.
And you were feeling anxious.
Sure.
So what was the last memory you had in the hotel room?
All right, so the last memory I had in the hotel room was really thoughts about, all right, we're going to go a little even deeper into it. And this for me is, I think it's important to talk about. I talk a little bit about my drug use, substance use or whatever. I've been using mushrooms therapeutically for maybe the last 5 years or so. And it started after my first experience with mushrooms. It was, I think it was 2017. And it was an experience where I had never used it before. I grew my own, I looked online. I was reading, some meditation and watching meditation videos from like Baba Ram Dass, and how many people who've gotten to a point where they're quote unquote understand what all of this is. Many of them have gotten there through some sort of psychedelic use. And for me, I was at a point of desperation trying to figure out how do I figure out this anxiety thing? And mushrooms were like, oh my goodness, like an immediate light switch on what reality is and where does anxiety come from. My first trip on mushrooms was like 2.5 grams. Back in 2017, maybe around, it was around Thanksgiving or something. And it was on the beach again. And I had this amazing experience where I saw like a little sandpiper, walking on the beach. And the sandpiper, it was another moment, but it split into like 3 in the moment. It was like this trailing. It's a phenomena. I don't know if you use shrooms or have used them before, but it's like a phenomena where trailing will happen if the object is moving quick enough. You're like your eye is picking up frames and it looks like it's splitting, but it's really not. It's just sort of how are we perceiving reality. Mushrooms has a way of cutting off your normal default mode network is what it's called, so that you perceive things in a fresh way. And in the moment, this an overwhelming feeling of who I was in the middle of all of this, like a sudden experiential awareness that there was no separation. I thought I was seeing a bird that was separate from me, but in that moment, a feeling came over. Not only is the bird me, but everything actually is me. Everything you look at is reflecting, right? The walls reflect light. The walls are reflecting you too. Everything is a reflection of us. And it was the weirdest sensation, but I would say for the next month after that, life was so easy, so simple. Every little anxiety just rolled off. Like, yeah, that person is causing you an issue, but it's only because they don't understand how the issue is really not with you. It was like a deeper understanding of where conflict comes from. So yeah, that helped me for a while, and that helped me kind of keep things going. But the day I was meditating, I was using mushrooms as well, and I had romanticized it to the point where every few months when I started to feel anxiety again, I would do another meditation session. And at first, I would use sitters to make sure I was okay. And then at some point, I became overconfident, like, oh, I'm good. I've got this now. I've never had this negative sort of experience, so I'm good, that people talk about. And on the one trip where I don't use a sitter, suddenly I'm having those negative feelings. And so my reluctance to mention is because I don't want to villainize the substance. The substance isn't the problem. The problem is using it in a wise manner. I use it in a very unwise manner. But ultimately, it brought me to this place too, which is the weird paradox of it all. You know, as difficult as my life is now, my life is way easier than it was pre-accident.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's not a realization that I had immediately. That was something that came maybe, I would say maybe about 3 to 2 years ago is a point where I really understood how easy I have it now. And I don't want people, you know, breaking their backs to, you know, figure out that life is easy. I don't want that at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying we need to be more open-minded about substance use and the ways substances can help us, especially substances that have a long tradition of helping your spiritual centeredness.
Right.
The big issue is just the education.
So you were doing mushrooms on the day of the accident.
Yeah.
And you were meditating.
Yes.
But without a sitter.
Right, exactly, without a sitter.
And normally you'd meditate with a sitter.
Exactly.
But on this particular occasion, you thought, I'm good, I'm cool.
Good, exactly. I'll be all right. I've done it at home, and I try to keep it away, you know, from being collateral to anyone else. I'll usually have a sitter who understands, you know, the use and understands what they're there for. So yeah, it's, you know, set and setting. You know, if you ever, you know, read that. So I had my mindset. I would say is, you know, you could question whether or not the mindset was right, but that day was good. I was good. My mindset was all good, but the setting wasn't right. I didn't have someone there to have my back or anything like that. I was just way overconfident. And the mushrooms whacked my ass for it.
But did you have a balcony in your room?
There was, yeah, balcony in the room, yeah.
So you must have just jumped off the balcony.
It's possible. It's quite possible. But I would say based on my injuries, it's questionable. Like if you look at the injuries on my body, on my calves, well, I'm about to show you, but you know, they're not going to be able to see it. But on my calves, they're super scraped up, right? As though like I fell off something and scraped my calves. I have no idea. I got all kinds of holes and stuff in my body that, you know, maybe I fell on something, but the photos from the scene don't show any of that. So it's a little bit of a mystery to me, but I would say that's certainly within the realm of possibility, but I don't have a memory of it happening. I was not suicidal before the event, so I have no clue. I have no clue about it.
So then from there, you woke up in a hotel room 2 weeks later. Sorry, in a hospital room 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind as soon as you regained consciousness?
As soon as I regained consciousness, in my mind was like, oh shit, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit, I fucked up. That was the first thing in my mind. Oh shit, I fucked up. And you know what are the authorities going to think about what happened, and is anyone else in my life going to be impacted by this somewhat? That was my first thought. Was how does this impact everyone else in kind of a way? But very quickly after that, I mean, they had me on all kinds of substances at first to kind of keep me in an induced coma. I was intubated, I had pneumonia, all kinds of stuff. I couldn't talk, the tube was down my throat. My legs were completely trashed. I was basically almost catatonic in the bed. I couldn't move or do anything, couldn't shit myself properly or use the bathroom or any of that kind of stuff. So it was, at that point, it was really about, all right, I need to get myself better. I wasn't even at that point thinking about so much the steps forward, just about, well, what do I need to do now? Because I still felt like that old mode of get the reps in and figure out how to get yourself healthy. I did wrestling and stuff like that in high school, so I'm not, broken bones in high school and all sorts of competitive type of endeavors. So injury wasn't a big deal. I've taken risks before to try to improve performance, but immediately after was, how do you get better, man? Let's figure out how to get you stronger or something. But it wasn't until maybe, yeah, like I said, maybe a couple months down the line, it was like, dude, you know, all the doctors were like, that's it, man. You know, this is your life now. You're not gonna be able to use the bathroom anymore. You're not gonna be able to walk anymore. You're not gonna be able to do any of that stuff
Damn.
anymore. Yeah. So you've got to get comfortable with this. You know, less than
Sorry.
yeah,
Show that.
yeah, less than
Yeah.
0.3% of the population gains any function back from this. You know, they thought I was complete at that point. I mean, I had nothing below the waist, nothing at all.
So you couldn't move your legs at all.
Zero, nothing.
You could move your arms though.
Yeah, arms are good, except I was completely, whatever they had me on, ketamine and stuff, I was completely weak. I couldn't do anything for a while until I guess my body stabilized so that I could start, you know, actually doing some physical exercise. They had put like this little trapeze bar on my bed so I could at least get an arm workout. I couldn't even lift my arm to get up there to pull myself up, was how out of it I was for like the first month, I would say, you know.
So what was the impact on you emotionally then? Like they're telling you all this stuff, you just woke up, like you're looking at around it like, fuck.
Yeah, no, initially, the first month, it really didn't impact me emotionally. It wasn't until like about the second month, I would say, it started to dawn on me like, this is sort of permanent, you know? Which now, it's not permanent at all. You know, I understand my body now, and I understand sort of how my body works at least. So I know it's not permanent now. But yeah, maybe about 2 months into it, that was the point where I was like, all right, it's nothing for me now. This is my life. But at that point, all I did was, you know, all I could do was just stay in bed all day and do nothing, you know, wait for a nurse to come clean my butt or something like that, you know, but that was it, you know.
But what was the mental dialogue? Because I'm just curious, man. Because like you sinks in like shit. It's just like permanent.
Yeah, yeah.
Doctors are saying all this crap. Like I can't use my legs again. All this stuff.
Right.
Like so, what's going through your mind as they're saying this stuff?
I think it's two different thoughts happening at the same time. It's one thought, you know, like the thought when you go to school, a teacher tells you something. You listen and you say, okay, the teacher, you know, I trust the teacher. The teacher is trying to tell me something that is true. But you may also have a thought about, yeah, but isn't there another possibility? Maybe there's something else that, you know, the teacher isn't thinking about. So it's sort of two paths at the same time. One path saying, all right, this is it. Just resign yourself to this. You got to figure out now, how do you make all this work? I had a business that was going. I had to make sure I made all my payments back to the bank and everything. So it was just about getting back into the zone, accepting what they're saying. This is me. I'm going to be stuck in bed, and all I can do is use a computer is what I'll be able to do, you know. I started using my retirement savings to try to invest that, to try to make more money so I can pay back the bank and all this stuff. And that worked well for a little while, you know. When the market was going good, things were going good. Market started going bad, it's like, all right, this isn't sustainable. You know, the business has to be able to support itself. And without me there to try to figure out how to make it better, there's an obvious direction this is all going, you know. Yeah, so I think at some point I just resigned myself. Yeah, well, that's what, you know, the Small Business Administration is there for. You know, you took out a business loan in the U.S., that's what they're there for. They're there to try to help you to make, you know, something better of your life. And they've got a protection mechanism in there. So at that point I was like, all right, I just can't do it. I'm going to leave that alone. I got to focus on my own recovery and development. And I went back to using shrooms again. I used some more shrooms. And I got back to that place of all these problems that you think you have, there are solutions if you stop pitying yourself so much and you try to see that there is something you can still do. There are still things you can do. You can work on yourself, the pieces that you know you're good at improving. I'm good at figuring out my body. I've always been. And the moment I started getting these little movements back in, you know, toes starting to move, I was like, all right, well, there you go. There you go. You're going to get something back. How far are you going to get it back? Who knows? But your body is telling you right now it's going to work with you and get you something back. Yeah, and it's just been a constant road to getting back to a place of wholeness, which is where I am now. You know, I don't use shrooms anymore or anything like that. Not to say that I wouldn't again, because I think there's a place for that, just like there's a place for coffee in your diet or any sort of substance you use. But you have to understand what the relationship, you have with it is, and where you're at with it. And that's why I think education is important about everything: coffee, alcohol, marijuana, mushrooms, you name it. It's important to have a dialogue about it to figure out what are the missteps when you use it. You use too much alcohol, you're going to crash into something from using alcohol. You use too much shrooms without a sitter, you might suddenly fall off of a balcony. Who the hell knows? Yeah, this is a very weird, but I'll mention it. It was so.
You can sit back and then.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, you're like, oh, I want to hear this one.
You can just relax. I want you to be both really relaxed. Yeah.
But yeah, this is the thing. I'm like, this is the thing about relaxation and passion, right? So right now I am very energized, even though I'm completely calm and at ease with this conversation. But my interest in this is so high, it comes across as, high energy, because it is. Just because I want to get I want to be very clear about how it's helped and how it hasn't helped, So yeah, it's strange, but yeah, I hear you. But yeah, so on that day, and I think this was also a byproduct of, mushroom use. When I had gotten tired and started to have sort of all of these negative thoughts, I went to sleep. I was watching different meditation shows.
Where were you? This is when you were in a hospital?
No, this was in the hotel.
Okay.
So, I was on the beach at the hotel. It started to, sunset started to come down, so I went up into the room. I had gotten a massage that day and all that stuff. I was probably dehydrated and all kinds of stuff that doesn't help if you're also, using a psychedelic substance. But anyway, so after I'd fallen asleep, I woke up again, but I started to have hallucinations I had not had before. Like I would hear loud noises happening outside. It sounded like gunfire or something. Who the heck knows? It's a shrooms experience, and I was waking up. Might have been dreaming. Who knows? But I went back to sleep again at that point. And that's when I woke up in the hospital with everything happening, not knowing what had happened. So, yeah, was I suicidal, or was I having a bad experience with the shrooms? Who knows what it was at that point. But I would leave room open that it could have been any of those, if I'm being honest. So, yeah.
Why was there a possibility that you could have been suicidal?
Just because I know it, the whole reason I was meditating in the first place was to get rid of anxiety. For anyone who's ever had a shroom experience, there are times when you have these sort of what they call circular thoughts. So if anything is bugging you, it has a way of focusing in exactly on that thing and taking you over and over and over on that thing. An hour can seem like an eternity when all that's happening is a single thought about how you are messing up on this thing. There are tools to help get you out of that, and that's why a sitter is good, because distraction is a great tool. If you're using shrooms, it's easy to listen to something good and so suddenly take yourself out of a bad circular thought process. But this is a problem, if there isn't enough education about what can go bad, which is why I think this is probably a great thing that we're getting into this. People aren't aware, so they go try using a substance for a romanticized reason without understanding how bad it can get if you don't have support around you. So yeah, I would say it's possible, but yeah, the whole reason I was there at the time was try to get beyond any of those anxious thoughts, not any thought about ending it or anything like that.
So were you having lots of business stress at the time, or was business?
Oh yeah, a ton of business stress, man. I'd gotten into a bad deal, really. I worked at Verizon for 20-something years and was steadily sort of on a promotion path there. But really, after, I would say, after becoming like a senior engineer type, beyond that, the work was no longer something that satisfied me deeply, because now I was just trying to climb the ladder, make more money. I was not really, what I would say, I was not centered around the work. It wasn't something for my soul anymore. my soul was like slowly dying in the job. But this is like education piece, you know. I was the first one to graduate college and all this stuff in my family, so I didn't have like a true path within my family to follow to say like, oh, this is how it's done. So I was kind of making it up, looking at the way other people did it, and you know, said, okay, this is how you do it. You want to live a good life, make more money. That's how you're going to live a good life. But it's not exactly true. You know, now I know that's not true. But anyway, so at some point, I had enough set aside. I was like, take these skills and, you know, try it on your own. So I invested heavily into another business. Turns out it wasn't such a great business deal for me, but I tried to figure it out anyway. But it wasn't working. I was dipping into my own savings to try to keep everything running. And the writing was on the wall. It was like, at some point, either you're going to turn this around or you're just going to have to close up the shop, you know? Yeah, so I closed up the shop. But yeah, man. And hindsight being 2020, if I had, you know, my own biological kids, I would tell them, you've really got to do the thing that speaks to you, ultimately, you know? You can't follow someone else's path and expect that it's going to go the way it goes for them. And who knows if even that's the way it's going for them. You know, we've got these public personas, the way people see us isn't exactly the way we see ourselves sometimes, you know. So yeah, I think in all cases, when you do the thing you want to do, there's no one else to blame but you. If you're learning from your own experience, there's no one who's going to learn that better, you know. No one can teach a book better than someone who's learned it through experience, you know. If you've just learned it through a book and you're teaching it from the book that you learned it from, that's not real, you know. It's not real. Not to me, anyway.
To me,
yeah.
It's like experience is a spirit. You can't Google experience.
No, man. And who has your experience, you know? You are the most perfect you. No one has gone through what you've gone through. For anyone to second guess what you're doing, they have no idea about you. They're making the wrong judgment. You're the only one who has the right judgment about you, you know? There's no expert that knows you better than anyone else. So, and that's how I feel about experience. When you experience it, there's no one who can take that away from you. That's yours for life, you know? Yeah.
We'll touch on your business shortly, but I just want to get back to the. So how long has it taken you to get some sort of movement in your legs since the accident?
So I would say I had very small movements to begin with. Like in a couple months, I would start to get toes moving. My left leg has been the most responsive to movement. My right leg has been the most responsive to sensation. So between the two, they kind of are like a whole leg. But, you know, it's very strange. But about 2 years ago was the first time I was actually able to walk unassisted. And the best way to describe it was when I did, it feels like walking on stilts or something. The appendages don't feel like mine often. Now it's a little bit different. The right leg, they definitely feel like mine, but it's strange to describe it. But anyway, at that time, it just felt like walking on two wooden pegs, you know. And this is sort of a sign of how do we define who we are as an identity, you know? At what point is it you, and at what point is it not you, you know? Like you cut off your leg, you're still there. So is your leg you or not you, you know? The fact that I couldn't feel my legs, but I could still use them, just like, you know, I put on a shoe. Is the shoe mine or is the shoe not mine? You know, is it me or not me? This is sort of the way we define what we are as an identity. But we're everything, man. We're from the whatever point in your brain where all the consciousness originates, all the way out to your fingertips, all the way to when I touch this desk and I can feel that the desk is warm, you know. In some ways, right at the border there, the desk is me too, because I can sense that, you know. So it's just like a different way of looking at identity and where do you end and where does another begin. From my perspective, the truth is that there is no separation from any of this. Whatever we're made up from, you know, atoms or whatever it is, it's all us, you know. I'm extending to you, you know, through the floor and through the carpet. in some ways I'm sensing your energy too. There's no separation there, even though you are having conscious thoughts that are different from me, you know? What sort of muscle memory do my muscles have that I have no idea what they're doing? When my heart is beating, I have no idea that it's doing that. At what point is it me or is not me is sort of something interesting to look at, I think, you know?
That's fascinating, because
Yeah.
if you identified with you before the accident, then that means that there's a part of you that's been lost in the accident.
Yeah.
Is that how you view it, or viewed it before?
I think that's one way to look at it. You know, there certainly is, I would say, a practical way of living, ways of defining boundaries around things that help, you know, driving a car, whatever practical sort of thing you have to do. But when it comes to understanding life in general, I think there's something beyond that that we need to consider. And that's like everything that we do has an impact on something else all the time. And in that way, we are responsible for everything else all the time, and everything else is responsible for us all the time too. It's an interplay, you know. It's complex and it's not so easy. Well, it's easy, but we're complex on all the things we need, you know, food and good feelings or whatever it is. But I'd say the more we consider how we're impacting others, meaning people and even the environment, it's important because that helps us too, I think, you know, ultimately.
And how did you not focus on the past so much? Because that's a trap that I've fallen into myself, right? Of like, oh fuck, like for example, I was injured, I had sciatica, right? Couldn't walk for a month.
Oh, I get it now too. If I sit long enough, you know, my left ass cheek will definitely fall asleep, and I'll get up and walk around a little bit. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too, about the sciatica, and because you know you're sitting so much.
Yeah, for sure. Even my posture is terrible because either I'm sitting or in the bed. I have a full cage in my back from L5, lumbar 5 to T6, I think.
Damn.
So it's a full cage. I can barely twist or bend in my back at all. So when I sleep, I have to sleep on my back, and it leaves my posture sort of a little bit not quite as upright because I'm not. But the more I've been standing, the more I'm forced to kind of be upright, you know. But yeah, so not thinking about the past is really. I think that where you put your attention is where you're at, you know? If I put my attention on the past, you know, where is my emotional thought process in that past? Am I feeling good about that past? Which now I do, because I feel like in many ways, the best way to say it, I feel like I've accomplished what you're supposed to accomplish in life, which is understanding your place and your place in the balance of all of it. So I don't put my attention on all the negative feelings because now that's my reality is negative feelings. Not to say that it's not there. It's important to realize you have negative feelings so that you appreciate the positive ones, you know? So you use it like alchemy or something. Whenever you have this a bad time, and you know, it goes in waves. If for every good time you have, you're gonna have a bad time too. You know, before my waves were like this, you know, extremely great times, you know, winning motorcycle racing championships, climbing mountains and shit like that. Extremely good times. And then extremely low times because I would challenge myself so hard with businesses I had, you know, really no idea about, you know, getting into a trucking business when I was an electrical engineer. But I loved the challenge, and I think that was a bit of the addiction, which was whatever the problem is, I know I can figure it out. So I would keep challenging myself until I couldn't figure it out, you know, and then it all just collapsed. But the more that I put my mind on the thing that enriches me, and for me, that is this moment right now. That's you. It's me trying to do something good, you know, for each other, for other people who might be interested. And people will make judgments one or another, but really that's okay. That's part of it. They have to make a judgment to understand why are they making the judgment. Why do they think it's negative or positive? That's something they've got to look at. I understand my why, so I don't worry about anyone else's why anymore, you know? I got to understand my own. Well,
yeah. I think for people listening, though, they want some, like, it sounds like you're aware of where you're focusing on. Whatever you focus on grows,
sure.
right? So you're not going to focus on the fact that you fell from a balcony and now you're laying in hospital with a broken back.
Right.
Because that's not going to serve you moving forward.
Except for when it comes to maybe helping someone else understand my perspective. But beyond that, it's no longer important. You know, people ask me like, did you sue this or that? No, because it had nothing to do with any of that. This was something I take responsibility for, even though I don't understand what happened. And now it's gone. Other than what can I learn from it? You know.
So that's how you view it, like it reframes. Like, all right, this happened, because that's the thing. Most people, an event happens in their life, and then they attach the meaning of, oh fuck, I'm a piece of shit because I did this or whatever they did, whatever happened.
Yeah.
And then they use that as, and they go through life, and it's hard to break out
Never
from
get
their
past
past.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people get attached to their trauma, their pain. I mean, I do too at times. You know, it makes me feel like if I can show that, you know, look at all this, you know, victimization I've had. It makes me feel like, oh, people will understand then, and then they'll say, oh, you're so good because you had all this. But I think it's false. It's really false in a sense.
Yeah, because I'm curious about how you think about that because, man, I can only imagine. Like I saw a video once of Tony Robbins. It was basically.
I stayed at his resort when my first marriage. By the way, I went to. He had a resort in Fiji, the Namali resort.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful place, man. I love Fiji. Awesome, yeah. I never met him in person that I know of. I think he would have been a very recognizable figure. So, but yeah, I think what he does is good. If people have to take from the message what works for them, you know. And like anyone else, you know, you're not going to like everyone. Some people may like Tony, some people may not like Tony. Some people like me, some people may not like me. But at the end of the day, you know, I don't know what Tony does, but for me, I do what works for me, and I try not to cause harm to anyone else while doing that.
Yeah.
If I can follow that path, I'm good.
Yeah.
If I realize through my actions I'm causing some sort of harm to someone else, then I look and I correct that action, you know. So I ask for forgiveness if I didn't realize that I did that. But once I realize what I'm doing, I adjust the way I behave, you know?
The reason I mentioned that is because I was watching a show of his, and there was this newly married couple. They both jumped into the pool, and then their husband, I don't know, he must have hit his head or some shit, and then he became a quadriplegic like, immediately.
Yeah.
And just following their journey and his mental journey after that accident, and the wife's mental journey as well. And you know how he's playing basketball like with the quadriplegics and stuff. And I was like, man, that just fascinated me because I've always been curious about the mind. It's kind of like why I do a podcast, you know.
Yeah, that's actually I've got an interesting story about that because so after I had when I had my accident, they've got these beautiful rehabilitation places. One of them was called the Shepherd Center. It was in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And they accepted my case. Like they have to look at your medical files and figure out if they can help you or not. So anyway, they accepted my case. But anyway, I was there, you know, feeling sorry for myself. My legs were in this weird, you know, skeleton contraption to keep them locked in. And here I'm thinking, man, this is awful. And there was a guy next to me, and he had actually, I don't want to. He can tell his own story, but surgeon, and he was on vacation with the kids, and he had jumped in like a little river or something like that, head first, and it was shallow, and he popped one of his cervical, you know, vertebra. But now this is an extremely successful surgeon, like the head surgeon of someplace, and now no use of anything below his neck. And he was in the room, and he was calling for the nurse. I'm like, oh man, this guy is so loud calling for the nurse. Like, I wonder what's wrong with this dude. And he says, nurse. The nurse comes in there. She's like, what's wrong, Mr. So-and-so? He's like, I can't scratch my nose and it's itching. I was like, holy fuck. You know, that just fucked me up like big time. Yeah. Wow. I'm like, I'm complaining. I've got full use of my hands, and here's a dude, he can't even scratch his nose, you know? Damn. So I'm like, shoot, man. That was heavy stuff. And that was like a turning point too. There's multiple points, you know, where there was like a lesson, like, you know, you're feeling sorry for yourself. There's always someone who's, you know, got it worse than you. So imagine what he's got to try to figure out. And his outward persona certainly seems stronger than mine. I have no idea because it might not be that way. There was a long time I looked like I was solid and I wasn't. You know, I had a great way of kind of showing another side or whatever to make people feel like, oh, it's all right. You know, there's nothing wrong here. Kind of suffer in silence type of thing. And who knows if he was doing that or not? But that was the moment. It was like, yeah, he's got it worked. At least I could scratch my damn nose. Shoot, you know, like wipe my own ass or something. But yeah, that was definitely a turning point for me.
Yeah, because now you're like, it's a reframe on your own problems. When you see someone else with problems that are worse than yours.
Exactly, man.
What
do I have to complain about?
Gratitude. Yeah. Now it's gratitude.
Yeah, grace. They call that grace. Yeah, man. That's a big part of it. It's the lesson that I wanted, but I wasn't prepared for, you know, type of thing. But as soon as I recognize that this was a sort of blessing, you know, outright, but I know people listening like, what do you mean? It absolutely was a blessing. The biggest turning point for me. It was a beautiful recognition, you know, that we have so much capability within us, or so much untapped capability, really. And the more that we are present and really try to observe and be aware of all of the feelings, physical sensations, emotional, all the spiritual sensations you have, there is profound lessons to be learned from there, you know. This is just from my perspective. I've learned so much from this sort of spiritual, and even that sounds a little strange, but just this place of being aware of my life, being thankful of all the great things, and being thankful of even the things that I thought weren't great, but made me try to learn something to improve it. So in that way, they were lessons too, you know. There's something profound there, but it just doesn't come that easy, you know. We're taught to chase something outside of ourselves since we're young. So, you know, it was like 40 years of learning the wrong way and then trying to unlearn that and start over and learn something new. So, yeah, it's taking some lessons and getting rid of a bunch of them and just starting over and just being present, you know?
Yeah, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned then since the accident that you think is because I think you touched on it earlier, like how you're more happy. What did you say?
Sure.
You said you're more. I don't exactly know how you worded it, but it seems like you're better now than you were before the accident.
Way better, and it's really just an awareness of my emotional state and how everything else affects that. You know, we feel like emotions and, you know, physical things are different, but they aren't. I feel like physical things are sort of like the instantaneous bad feeling. Like you step on a stone or something and it hurts. That's an immediate negative feeling that you feel that you respond to. But let's say now, so like with something like chronic pain, if you're in some sort of chronic pain, but you're managing it, right? It feels like, it's not such a big deal. But that has a way of slowly chipping off at your emotional state. So it's something physical that will turn into something emotional, that will turn into something spiritual if you don't manage it the right way. But you can do that the other way too. You know, you can take those little negative things and try to figure out how to improve them and turn them into this positive emotional engine. But again, it's a wave, you know. So it's like if you try to go too high, there has to be a balance. You have to find a balance. If you can try to simmer somewhere in there, you know, where you're enjoying this flow, you know, there's going to be moments where it feels good, moments where it's like, I'm in a little bit, you know, in the dumps or whatever. But you know that's going to turn around. It always does. So you just look for it. Whatever that moment is, you're like, all right, I'm feeling bored today. That's what happens to me. You know, it's like the moments of, wow, I'm having fun at this activity. Oh, I'm feeling a little bored today. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to do this podcast. I'll play some guitar. And suddenly I'm like alive again, and I'm thinking, oh, let me see how I can prepare myself for this next thing that I have never done before, and see how this is, you know? That's kind of how I manage my emotional states, because they're all there. To try to have only one side of that is incorrect, because it's all part of that, and you have to find a balance somehow. For every positive, there's going to be a negative, so you just try to keep it within a threshold, not to go too far. And sometimes you will, because it's like, everything in moderation, including moderation. Sometimes you want to go have a really good time, but you try to keep somewhat stable within that, you know? Yeah.
And what if I was to meet you before your accident, would I have met a different Dale?
Different in some ways, and in some ways not at all. Like even now, I've been posting more on Instagram and stuff. I've been having some legal issues back in Florida, so I kind of stayed off public eyesight for a while. But now I'm like, none of this shit is my fault, so I'm not going to try to hide who I am. And I remember someone saying, "Oh, I still remember that smile or whatever." It's the same smile like ever from before. Except now it's a much more honest smile. Back then it was an honest smile too, but it might have, hidden a couple of things back there. Not to say there might not be something small hidden there, but the smile you see is the same smile, and it's much more honest than it was before even. So honest, in fact, that I will give you whatever piece of me that helps you in the way I think you might need to get some help. So whatever that thing is, I might think someone may view negative, I don't mind giving that to you if it helps you, So that's how I live my life. I've always lived it like that, but even more so now,
What was the change to make you more honest?
And I think this is sort of a deeper one. And I'm still not even all the way there yet, but I'm almost completely transparent now. Because I believe whatever thing it is that we're trying to conceal, it ultimately has a reflection within us too. It's like that state of anxiety. The thing that you're trying to conceal is the thing that always occurs back in your mind. It keeps coming back. So the more that you just let those things go, at first it's that sharp pain, like you step on the rock, like, ow, that hurts, I have to let that go, But suddenly it's no longer painful now. You've let it go. As opposed to when you're holding on to it, it's not painful to hold on, but now you're building up sort of this emotional baggage that becomes difficult to hold on to. So the more that you can let those things go early, the easier it is. For me, that's in my experience. So I try to get it out as soon as I can. But even like in this show, I was reluctant to talk about my shrooms use in the hotel, right? Yeah. So this is like a perfect sign. It's like, but as soon as you let that thing go, it's painful, but now I can have such an honest conversation about it, Yeah. It's the type of thing I've only told people very close to me. In some cases, I might have, said some information, more publicly or whatever. But it's one of those things that it's still like a piece that is always like, ooh, I gotta talk about that, but ooh, that's gonna be a little uncomfortable. But every time I do it, I feel good about it because it's no longer something that's holding me down, It feels good to let go of whatever that thing is that's keeping you on lockdown, Yeah.
And that's something that I see in this world of, public figures.
Yeah.
Is a lot of times, like, for example, the bigger you get in podcasts, like, you have to give the guests the questions, like, hey, I'm going to ask you these questions, is that all right?
Yeah.
And it's like...
So worried.
Yeah, and it's like... Just when you peel back behind the curtain of what people see on like public figures,
right?
Like a lot of it's nothing. A lot of it's not as it seems.
Yeah, because think about it. The bigger you get as a public figure, the more you have to lose. It's like this feeling of the more attachments the more we think we own, like we think we're more powerful, the more we own. I think it's the opposite. I think the more you own, the more entrapments you have, the more things that really own you that you can't let go of, In the corporate world, there's this concept of golden handcuffs. The harder you work, the more you get promoted, the more money you make. But also the larger these handcuffs. You can't let go of them because the moment you let go of them, now you feel like you're naked, that you no longer have everything you had. But those things aren't real at some point. Are you playing a role for everyone or are you being yourself? People have to decide that for themselves, I think there's a place, like let's say for artist types or whatever, I've been trying my hand at some art or whatever. It's powerful to use your emotional state to create a work of art. So I would say that, there's room for many ways to do this. And who am I to say that someone's way of doing it is wrong, except for if they're directly hurting someone. If they're doing something and not hurting anyone but themselves, that's them. That's their life. That's up to them. That's their relationship with whoever their God is, But, after that, you get to decide, what you want to do. So, don't hurt anybody, and we'll be all right, I think.
Yeah. So adding to what we were talking about earlier about the accident. So
Yeah.
so you now focused on what you can control, focus your attention on the present moment, and now you're not going to, like, your mind does drift to the past, but
Sure.
you recognize it and you bring it back and you focus on what you can control, right?
Yeah. Every single thought that is possible runs through my mind, just like anyone else. Yeah, there's something to talk about there too, about repressing thoughts even. But every single thought runs through my mind, good thoughts, bad thoughts, all the time. It's just a question of what thoughts get stuck there and why are they getting stuck there. And it just comes back again to what are the things that we're holding on to that we're unwilling to let go of. Those are the things that keep coming back. And they're coming back for a reason. It's because, like, you haven't dealt with the shit. That's why it keeps coming back, But yeah, the moment you are just able to accept the thoughts that you have and see them for what they are and try to understand, why do I have this negative thought? Or even for positive thoughts, why do I always feel... We never really question the positive thoughts so much, and are they real thoughts too, I think it's important to just look.
What was the thought that was coming back for you? What was the thing that was always coming back? You're like,
how am I going to support my family? That was always a thought for me. How am I going to support my family? How am I going to do that? I was lucky after the accident. I had all that time in bed to do nothing but invest, and the market was taking a nice shot up. This was right before the COVID stuff was happening. I was able to kind of extend my business life a little bit longer, try to figure out someone to take my employees on, make some money for my family to make sure that they were okay. And once kind of I had done like met some milestones that I was like, all right, I've taken care of, the people that I felt responsible for. And now I can wash my hands and just focus on me. And that was such a big point. I mean, I should have gotten there before. Like, I was putting too much emphasis on everyone else, not realizing that it starts with you. You have to be healthy in order to be able to support everyone else. If you're supporting everyone else and not healthy for yourself, that's destined for failure at some point, The more you make yourself healthy first, the more you can be healthy for anyone else. And now I live that in spades. I only give what I'm able to give now. And I can give so much more than even before. And it's not because I have more money than before. I have far less. But now I understand balance. I understand my place in all of this. So now I can give support as much as I want to without any problem, And when I feel like, all right, I need to take a little Dale time, no problem. I have no problem saying, nah, not today. I'm going to take a little break, My thumb's been hurting. I've been wanting to get back to jiu-jitsu, but I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take a little jiu-jitsu break for a little while. But, yeah, man.
How do you get to that place, though, of where you are now, where you're able to just give so much to people? I know you said you work on yourself, but what's that process look like?
No, that's a good question, too. And I think this is... I'll tell you, some of the stuff that happened to me, and it started with some of the self-help books. So I would, I watch a lot of Joe Rogan's podcasts. Sam Harris was one of the guests, often on Joe Rogan's. And I disagree a lot with what Sam Harris talks about, but, he was one of the individuals that talked a little bit about his psychedelic use and how it had a positive, impact on his own thinking process and thought process. And he talked about the downsides too, on how, you could be stuck in eternity in a place of hell, things I didn't really listen to because I had such a positive experience with it. But from there, starting to watch Ram Dass and Muji and some of these other sort of spiritual intellectuals, looking more closely at myself, I think there were a few instances where I could say some aha moments came about, understanding my place in all of this. So I would say that was very influential to kind of getting to this point of just being comfortable with myself, just being comfortable with myself, So that was pretty helpful, Yeah. I don't know if that would work for everyone,
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that because there are many people who are quite comfortable, quite balanced in their life without, using psychedelics or anything like that. I don't think I would have gotten there without that for me, But yeah, and that, when I say psychedelics, I don't mean it has to be like ayahuasca or something strong like that. It works for many people in many cultures. But even stuff like marijuana, in my experience now, I have very strong psychedelic experiences using just marijuana bud, just smoking a joint, and I'll be so centered for several hours, you know, calm, looking at the beach, enjoying life, you know, forgetting all the things I have to do and just embracing the moment. And that for me works, man. It helps my pain too. So, yeah, that I hope more places legalize that, you know, medically. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But at what point, like, do you feel like you have to rely on that, or is that just
no? Because for a while I was in jail for 3 months, and you know I couldn't use anything at all in jail, and that feeling of centeredness just got stronger in jail. And the reason I realized was because I had so much time to myself. There was nothing to do. There was no technology, no Instagram.
When was this?
This was last year, right around December timeframe.
Damn.
I got kicked out of my own home for trespassing my own home or whatever, but I got put in jail. There's some weird, I would say it's a legal error, but at this point, it's that piece is over. But I was in jail for 3 months on a bogus charge. So
In a wheelchair?
In a wheelchair, yeah. In a wheelchair in jail.
Damn.
3 months.
What was that like?
That was wild. That was super wild. I'd never had an experience like that at all.
Yeah.
And after being there now, I would tell you it's not very different from life outside of jail either. I mean, you meet people, there are certain rules you got to follow that, you know, the jail society has, and rules that, you know, they're fucked up on in the same way we're fucked up on the outside society. So it's very similar. You know, I still had to find a place of centeredness. And I think in many ways it taught me how to find centeredness anywhere. You know, you can be in prison and still find center. Now, it doesn't mean, you know, you need to stay there if you don't have to, but yeah, what I realized there is it's like anything else. You have people who want to be the big guy, you know, people who get abused and picked on. But the more that you know who you are, that has a way of emanating, you know. Yeah, I met a guy, a racist KKK dude, in jail, and he came over and he would bring my meal cart to me because I was in a wheelchair. They had me in a section that wasn't for people with healthcare issues. Mm-hmm. They'd even had me in a wheelchair. This guy would come and bring food to me, you know, and that like totally shook me. Like, holy smoke! Here's this dude bringing this, you know, black dude with a medical problem food. You know, to the point even the supervisor of the cell would come over and give us extra food because he was so happy with what the guy was doing. I was like, yeah, man, all right, I can do with this. You know, you can find your balance anywhere, I think. Now, I know I can, and I think anyone can, really. You know, it's possible. Not to say it's easy. You know, you got to find a way to bridge that gap somehow, but it can be done. Yeah, I talk about bridging the gap. There's a cool book called Sapiens. Yep. That kind of talks about, you know, human progress. And it's something that, you know, I read maybe a year ago or something. They had a pretty, you know, profound impact on me too. I forget the author's name, but
yeah, that guy.
Yeah, that guy. I like the books that he's been writing. It's, you know, there's often something I disagree with anything I read, but there's some, you know, that I guess harmonize with me more than others, and he's one of them that does. So, you know, I listen to his interviews sometimes. Yeah.
So I want to talk about body image real quick because
sure.
That's something that as you're talking, I'm like, man, I've hated my legs for so long.
Yeah, well, like, now I skip leg day. Well, yeah. Or I should say I have leg day every day, but
there's this hashtag online, hashtag don't skip leg day, right? Yeah. And there's like some sort of shame around, like especially in the fitness industry, which I'm not really a part of anymore, but like there's like a shame of like, oh, you got chicken legs, like you got a big upper body, but you got chicken legs, so you got to work on your legs, and you know, like being African American, notoriously like legs are like slimmer because we're like fast, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, like I've had chicken legs and I've had jokes about it. I just joke about it at this point, right?
Yeah.
And I've worked on it, and then I had sciatica, and I had to like not train legs for like a year.
Yeah.
And then it's like I had these hip problems, but I've come to the point now where I accept my legs for
Yeah.
what they are, but it's taken a long time to get there. And a lot of people wouldn't even notice about me. If they looked at my physique, they'd be like, he's self-conscious about his legs.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I saw a video of you doing yoga or something. I'm like, dude, that dude is built, man.
yeah, exactly.
I was like, I'm doing jiu-jitsu with that guy out. I should check my head out.
Yeah. So, but then little do people know, like, how I view my legs.
Right.
That's what it is. It's about how you view yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so, I have gratitude, like that example you mentioned, that guy, the surgeon, when he wanted to scratch his nose.
Sure.
Like, my gratitude is for my legs, that I can move my legs, right?
Yeah.
And it's different strokes for different folks, and it makes me realize how grateful I am for my legs.
Sure.
The fact that I can even move my legs.
Yeah.
But then we live in this more society, so we have to have more. So you got to have more muscle, like, more. Everything's more.
Yeah.
And at what point does it? Like, I heard something once about, this is about money, but it's like the guy who's the wealthiest person is the guy that knows when enough is enough.
Sure.
Rather than the guy that doesn't know when it's enough.
Yeah, I agree with that, wholeheartedly. I mean, I still have body image issues to a degree.
Yeah.
I loved my legs, like my ability. I would love playing more of a judo style of jiu-jitsu even. Takedowns. I used to love this sumigeshi takedown, which is really like a sacrifice. I just let someone kind of use their weight against themselves. I think I can still do it. I might have to try it in the gym at some point. But that's something that's much more difficult now.
Right.
The way my legs work. Only one leg has any strength, but even the coordination is bad. But I would say even that it's okay to have your personal preference on whatever, on yourself, on other people, whatever it is. But at some point you accept what you are, who you are, and the ways you're able to modify that if you can, For me now, I realize, even women, body issue image, this may sound a little, halfway gay or whatever, but it's like we try to impress women and guys with, the way we look. We even want guys to be like, yo, that dude's got some nice guns or whatever. Don't say it or whatever, right? But, true friendship, true relationships get even beyond that, all of the relationships I've been in, I'm a heterosexual man, but even if I was gay, whatever, it wouldn't matter. The women that I meet, even to this day, are just so much more in tune with what's real. Because whatever judgments they may have about it, they never let it shine through to me. And I have the most amazing relationships with everyone I've got. And some of them will be like, yo, your wagon is, you got quite a wagon back there, so don't even worry about your body image issues or whatever, So it's, these are just little things that, we have about ourselves. I remember even before I was having issues with my business, I was having issues with my hairline. And I was like, damn, I kept trying to cut it, get that little thing up here to make sure it was covered. It didn't look like I was starting to bald. And one day I was like, yo, man, you just need to go. It's just cut that shit off. I was like, dude, this is all right. I can do it with the bald head. It's all right, So you're surprised. I'm surprised, often at how much I love myself and accept myself. Not to say there are things that I'm not trying to improve. There's always a constant process of improvement, but I love myself.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
But that's the thing, That's why I raised that about the legs, because if I don't like my legs, right, that means I don't like a part of myself.
Sure. Right.
Yeah. And that's actually the root of everything in the health industry.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm in the health space, and everyone that comes to me, they want to, get bigger muscles, they want to lose weight, all this stuff, and it's because right now they don't like themselves. Like the amount of times I've heard people say, I don't like the way I look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what's driving them to change.
Yeah.
So it's like to move away from that pain, right? Yeah. But for you've had that accident, and you said you love yourself.
Sure.
You've got high levels of self-love. So how do you cultivate that when for that person who wants to lose weight, they would take losing weight over your situation any day, right?
Sure.
On the face of it.
Yeah.
But actually, you love yourself more than they do.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think, even like with the negative thoughts, I like any sort of principle that you can take and apply to anything else. I like, instead of learning 100 different things, I like learning one thing that you can apply all the time. Um, having, having to deal with a disability for several years now, and looking at other people who have different forms of disabilities too. I've met people with traumatic brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, all types of different injuries. The fact that I can look at anyone and find something beautiful about them made me question, why is it that I have such a hard time, seeing my own beauty sometimes. And I think that's sort of the magic trick for me. It's not to say we don't have our own preferences or whatever, but if you can look at, a little kid or something with spinal bifida and not find them adorably cute at whatever they do, there's something wrong with you, Even if that's not a body you want specifically, you can appreciate anything about anyone if you just take a little time and notice. Like you, I appreciate so many things about you. You're a handsome guy. You're running a great podcast. You're physically well built. You're great at jiu-jitsu. You've got a great mannerism about you. We can appreciate stuff about people all the time. First time I came to your place, I'm like, dang, this is a beautiful spot here, man. I would love to live in a little, a concrete bungalow, a bunker like this. This is beautiful. Yeah. But yeah, you can appreciate all the time something about yourself. You can look at something. I can look at my leg. Sometimes I look at my right leg and I'm like, oh man, I wish you were as strong as the left leg. But then I'm like, you know what though? You're the one who gives me sensation. You let me know if the water is too hot or something like that. There's something to appreciate there rather than looking at the faults. Try to look at what are the benefits that you can get from this thing, and not like in a selfish way, but what is it that's so beautiful about this moment? There's always something there. What's so beautiful about this person? There's something always there. The negative is always there too, but you don't have to spend a lot of time. That thought is going to come in, and you just let it go. If you grab onto it, now you're stuck on. I want to be that person instead of being myself. Because of all of these negative things that I keep looking at about myself. But yeah, I think in practice, that's something you can let go. As soon as a thought comes in, you take it. Yeah, I wish my right leg was stronger, but it's doing pretty damn good, and I move on. I move on to the thing that I love about whatever it is, and just stay in that zone as long as I can.
Yeah. Sounds like you're, first of all, thanks for the reflections.
Absolutely, anytime. See how that works?
Life is a mirror. Life is a mirror.
Life is absolutely a mirror.
So it sounds like you're focusing on the empowering thoughts. That's your default state, because a lot of people
nurture those. What are you nurturing is the question.
Uh-huh.
Just like a baby plant or a baby or whatever. There's a period of time you have to create a garden around them to allow them to be nurtured and a healthy environment for them to grow. Some of the other thoughts are stronger. You just put them out there and you let them do their own thing. But for the thoughts that you want to nurture and want to grow, those are the ones that maybe you put a little bit more focus on, a little more protection. That's how I do it. That's what I do.
Yeah, because that's really important. Because if you focus on the negative, you're just going to, whatever you focus on grows, right? So
absolutely.
It's going to keep coming back and keep getting
and that's
bigger.
where your life energy is. I mean, who knows how much time we have on Earth? Who knows that? Where are you putting your life energy? Are you putting it into nurturing something good and beneficial? Or are you putting it into something that's tearing you down in some way? That's how I live my life now. Where am I putting this energy? Is what I do.
Do you think that's like a daily question you ask yourself, or is that just like subconscious?
Not anymore. Now it's just programmed in. This is like we're all born with a set of genes, and these genes have different switches that are on or off. Some of us have the anxiety gene turned on. Some of us have it turned off. But we can reprogram those things if we put enough focus there. Why am I so anxious all the time? So now your anxiety gene is on, but you have another way of using the environment to turn it off now. You can use nature and nurture to kind of get what you want. And at some point, it's just your normal life now. You're not thinking about those things. The more you can integrate that, whatever the thing is that's helping you, suddenly it becomes easy. It's not even an effort anymore. Work for me is not effort. Work for me is what I do with my retirement savings, try to make money or whatever. There's no effort in anything I do anymore. And not to say like effort meaning physical effort, like jiu-jitsu. But jiu-jitsu is no effort either. I love doing jiu-jitsu. If I'm going there and I don't love it, that's the effort. Now I feel like I'm doing work to try to do something I don't want to do. I love doing anything I want to do because there's no effort to it. No matter how much physical output I'm doing it, I'm loving it. Kind of like that David Goggins. I don't know what David's, perspective is, but he seems to be someone who's got that figured out, He's doing it because he loves doing that thing. We're looking at it like, damn, aren't you tired? Just for him, it's like no effort. That's how I feel like he is, and I love that about him. I try to be that way with my own life. Do the things that I want to do that are effortless for me, that just feel good.
Is that a core belief of yours that everything should be easy?
Easy in what sense? Not easy like difficult to learn or easy to learn or anything like that. Easy in terms of your desire to do it. It should be easy. And not initially. It's okay to try something. Like you want to try something new and you're like, I think I want to try this. And maybe, for a month or so, you've got some difficult time with it. But there's got to be something in there that's like, I'm having a difficult time with this, but I'm seeing something I like. I'm seeing sort of a path to where I can continue doing this. Or after that month, you're like, yeah, this is just getting more, there's more and more effort. Maybe now you've got to switch it up. Maybe it's not the thing that you really want to do.
That's how I feel about jiu-jitsu though, because I'm only a blue belt, you're a brown belt, right? So you've been training for how long? How many years?
10 years actively, but it's been 14 years since I started training.
Yeah. So as you get better in jiu-jitsu, it just gets harder. So it becomes less fun. That's what I think at least.
Okay, and I got the, and see, I think I have an answer to that one too a little bit. That, for me, that was at one point a desire to keep up with my belt status or something. Like trying to say, like, I'm not an imposter. I really am a brown belt. So I've got to keep this on so that these other guys up and coming aren't going to start beating me. These purple belts aren't going to start beating me. That was that feeling. But I don't have that feeling anymore, And I think my paraplegic gives me that out. But really, this was something that started even before paraplegic. There's a point where I just got quite content with where I was, understanding the game better. Sometimes I'd be able to beat a black belt. Sometimes a blue belt might put me in a world of hurt. But getting comfortable and being able to say, you got me, And that's how you learn and get better. The moment you can say, you got me, and I try to figure out why you got me so that you can't get me anymore, now I'm getting better, If I can't do that with a blue belt and I'm just holding on, playing this game like, oh, you're not going to tap me, I didn't learn anything, The more that we can let go of like the belt status and just enjoy the game and learn from the game. Why are you doing it? Why am I doing it, I'm not looking to get a black belt, I'm doing it because I love to do it. The only reason I show up there is because I love doing it, I know with this sprained finger, I'm not going to love doing it, so I don't show up when I have my sprained finger,
Yeah, that's interesting because that's not how I view jiu-jitsu at all. Like,
I'm curious about your perspective.
I don't show up because I love it. Like, I actually don't love jiu-jitsu. And I told Justin this too.
Why do you do it then?
I told him this too. I said, the reason I started, and he knows this, the reason I started was because I wanted to tick the box of self-defense. Like, I wanted to know how to protect myself and my family, like, because I envisioned myself having a family.
Sure.
And so I wanted to be that dad, you know? That's like actually a big driver of mine, right? Yeah. It's like to be the best man I can be. So then, like, because another thing is I want my son to look at me as his hero. Sure. And for that to happen, I need to accomplish things. Yeah, thanks.
Wait, do you have children?
I don't have any children.
Oh, well, your future son does.
Yeah, future son. Sorry, I should have said that.
Yeah, it's all good. Take a look into the future a little bit.
Not that I know of. I don't have a son.
Back to
it's like a running joke. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, just self-defense, right?
Sure, yeah.
But then I shared with him recently, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm actually improving at my ability at self-defense because we're doing sport jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
And he was like, no, we are actually, this is a lot of self-defense, is positions and all that kind of stuff. And,
it's true, yeah.
But I was like, I started doubting, right? I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I showing up here? And for me, it was just mental toughness. Like, I want to build that capacity to do the hard things. But I'm like, if I'm not, I enjoy hanging out with all the jiu-jitsu teammates and stuff, but there are times where I'm thinking, why am I doing jiu-jitsu, Like, is this a time well spent?
I mean, I have a little recommendation for you, I guess. Like, even now, the way I roll now is very different than I used to before. I mean, I was very playful. Once I got to sort of like the higher purple belt level, I started becoming more playful with it. And that helped me because it helped me cut away a lot of the seriousness. And there's some positions that you just can't practice from a self-defense perspective without hurting someone. But in play, it becomes sort of a different type of game. You can imagine that, you know, someone may have you in a vulnerable position, even if the rules in jiu-jitsu say they can't punch you in the face. But the fact that your face is wide open and their elbow is there, you know it could happen. So, you know, and you've got to have good relationships with the people you roll with so that, you know, when you're playing in this way, you know, so like sometimes and MMA fighters love this, by the way, so I love training with them, you know, so their face might be there and I'll just kind of motion like, you know, I wouldn't hit them, but I pretend like I could get them. And that, for me, was a way to kind of introduce play back into it and make it fun again and not so serious about you have to do this and this and this, and you have to always beat the belts below you, or, you know, if someone is lighter than you, you got to beat. These rules are all bogus, you know. Who knows? If someone comes up with an interesting approach to something, I'm curious about it. And if you get me, oh, man, we're going to keep rolling until I can figure out how you got me, because I love figuring out. It's like a game of chess. What's that new opening trap that you just put on me that I never saw any before? I love all that. I love repeating that until I figure it out. That's just something, that's just the way I'm made. You might be a little differently on what are the things that, you know, focus you. Maybe imagining like, oh, you know, my family's back there and I got to make sure that they don't get past me. Whatever it is that helps put you in that mode where you enjoy it again, but you got to figure that out. You got to figure out what that is, you know.
Yeah, like the whole figuring out thing. I can see the parallels between business, because that's when you were there. He was coaching me, and a lot of what Justin was saying was about the things how I approach my life as well. Like, you know, like you're trying to go for this, but it's not there. You should go for something else.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like, because when you're good at one thing, you know, and there's pluses and minuses, you know, because I think there's nothing wrong with becoming an expert at whatever the thing is. Like, I love Sumigaeshi. To the point now, with even these legs, I'm pretty sure I can get a black belt with the Sumigaeshi throw. And that was something I learned from Lloyd Irvin's back in, I don't know.
Oh, Lloyd Irvin, I met him.
Oh, yeah. He showed me Sumigaeshi a long time ago. Yeah, 2006 or 7. Yeah. I used that thing well into the black belt. I would just sweep everybody with that thing. But anyway, yeah, it's like you've got to learn what it is that drives you, the thing that, you know, you're good at, and, you know, just keep rolling with that thing, you know.
Sounds like I've got to do some more shrooms.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, it's not bad at all. There's a reason why society, so many cultures, you know, from the Aztecs to the Indonesians to the Indians to the Brazilians, there's so many people who have that integrated into their culture some way. There's a reason for that. I think we've lost a bit of that knowledge because of our focus on sort of the science we do understand, as opposed to the science we don't understand. You know, you need both. You need all of the sciences, I think, and it's okay to figure out which ones work for you. You know, aspirins work for some people, and for some people that will, you know, make them bleed out or whatever. You've got to figure out what the thing is that works for you. You know, without someone else telling you what you can or cannot do, when the universe is as much yours as it is mine, as it is, you know, any government in the world. So why is it that people tell us what we can or can't do if it doesn't affect anyone else, you know? I think those are interesting things to look at, you know, personal freedom, personal choice.
Yeah. And you touched on David Goggins earlier.
Yeah.
So what is it that you like about him?
I just like that, you know, this is like, he's like, I don't want this to sound a bad way, but he's like my spirit animal in a way. It's like whenever I'm working on something, especially physical therapy, the fact that I can walk now is kind of crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong, after about 5 minutes of walking, my legs are dead tired and they're about to go into jello. But this should not be possible, according to the doctors. 0.3% of 1% chance of getting any function back to walking. 2 years is about the horizon, the window you have to the point where your improvement starts to slow down in neurological texts. 2 years was the mark where my shit started to accelerate. And there was a point where I'd even given up on physical therapy because I wasn't getting the benefit from it anymore. I wasn't seeing an improvement. But just focusing on my own body and what my body was telling me and trying to support that, there's a lot to say about it, a lot to be said about that. It's okay to listen. Doctors are there for a reason. They know what they're talking about. But you've got to listen to yourself too, you know. Both are necessary, I think. Yeah.
But what have you learned? learning from David Goggins.
Yes,
helped you.
yeah. Back to David. I'm sorry. So, whenever I get into a moment where I feel like there's just too much that I need to do to kind of get over the next hurdle or whatever, I remember that attitude even back in as soon as I got out of the Shepherd Center. They had to stop working on me at some point because I had these exoskeletons on my leg. And I remember having to go to physical therapy and trying to decide whether or not I was going to go to physical therapy with these things on my leg. And I was like, God damn it, if I'm going to be in this bed the whole time, I want to go out there. I want to go have fun again. Man, me and my wife at the time, we would figure out some kind of way to get me into the truck, to get me to the hospital, to get me into physical therapy. And just seeing that progress month over month, it always reminds me that whatever the thing is that I think is too difficult now, just remember the fact that you're walking now. Remember the fact 2 years ago, you took your first steps unassisted by anything, a wheelchair, a walker, or anything. And now you're walking, you can walk, hundreds of feet now if you really had to. So that never say die attitude has worked for me. It might not work for everyone, but for me it's worked. It's to the point where it's literally taken me like out of the damn grave to the point where I'm walking again and I'm like among the living again. So it's there's one in David Goggins' book for me, Thank you, David.
Yeah, it's like just never giving up, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
it's that resiliency.
Man. For sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, and a lot of the the friends that I have that don't know that they're my friends, like Lex Fridman and Joe Rogan. These are, I remember, and there was a monkey. I used to watch these, like the monkey forest here. I used to watch these monkeys in one of these when I was in. This sounds weird, but I guess it's okay because Joe's an ape and so is Lex. But I would watch these monkeys like in the sacred jungle in like Indonesia, and this was like something that like focused back in my life in some way. Like, dude, you can kind of recover from this. It's so strange to be here now after watching all of those different podcasts and everything, and it's just a weird combination, but it's worked for me.
So how do you view life now? Like,
life is beautiful, man.
Life is beautiful.
Life is beautiful. We are absolutely living heaven on earth. But it's like a question of, are we aware of it? It's like we're all walking around, and there are some of us who see the truth. Like, this is our happiness to be making, and there's other of us that are like within the truth. We're submerged within it. But we've got like this other bubble around us that like prevents us from actually being able to touch the real stuff, We've got this bubble of all these fake ideas of who we are and everything that we've been taught about ourselves. And the moment you can kind of like get past that boundary, then you start seeing how beautiful things really are, like truly, like all the time. Even the ugly things are there for a reason, like there to remind us about where we can be. We can be back in the ugliness, or we can make progress from that, to something much more beautiful. I truly believe that's possible, for humans, animals, everyone, everything.
What have I not touched on that you would like to share?
I would like to share, man. I'd like to share whatever wants to be shared, but
Is there something pressing on your mind that you want to share?
No, not really. I think you've hit all the high marks, even the difficult marks. That was one of the questions I had. Was like, all right, how deep am I going to go into some of this stuff? But I'm happy to have the opportunity. I've never really spoke about it in this type of manner. Everyone who's close to me understands everything I've been through. But even this might be an eye opener for them. It might shed a different perspective on the way I live my life. But yeah, I mean, like anyone else, I've got issues. It's not like life is without issues for anyone, but it's a matter of my relationship with those issues and even the people that I think are against me. They're not really against me. It's more of like they've got objectives that help them that maybe don't help me so much, but I understand where they're coming from too. Yeah, and it's just trying to understand everyone's perspective and why do they feel the way they do. I guess it goes a little bit deeper into more, personal life issues, but I guess it's really neither here nor there. Everyone's got to choose the things that help them in life, and the more that we can do that without hurting others in a direct manner, is the way I choose to live my life now. Yeah.
And it sounds like you have this acceptance of reality.
Yeah.
You let go of the negative thoughts, and then you also have this attitude of, I'm not going to give up.
Sure.
I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah,
and
man.
that combination of those three things has like helped you create this mindset where you're not dwelling on the past.
For sure.
The past Dale,
Yeah.
like that Dale is in the past. This is you now.
Yeah. Every moment we're new. It's like in every moment the environment is having an effect on us. It's changing us in some kind of way. I'm a different person from the person I came into this room with you now. Just in this conversation, there's new things that I picked up about myself in our conversation. We're always evolving, and the more that we can evolve toward a direction of sort of the common good, I think the better off everyone will be, everything will be. So that's the way I choose to live, and that's the way I try to show everyone why that's so great, and why you always see this smile on my face is because of that. And it's achievable for everyone, I believe. That's truly my belief. Everyone can achieve sort of this state of contentment, and happiness. Moments of very, very deep gratitude is quite possible without any drawback, And you don't have to use shrooms to get there.
Yeah. What do you think drives you in your life now?
Love, man. Love drives everything for me. Love is the ultimate truth, It's like this will sound weird, but some of this comes from like different sort of like ancient religious texts or anything. But you imagine existence before, and even saying before is strange. But imagine existence without any of this, right? That it's just you. You're God. Imagine that. You're God. And you're not even in your physical form now. You're just this tiny dot that's God. But you have all the, mental capacity of the universe within you. What a lonely place that is, to be by yourself as God. So I imagine sometimes that this is what God created in order to love himself in a way, or herself in a way, or itself in a way, is creating many versions of yourself to have this grand experiment of love. In what different ways can you love yourself? In what ways can you be kind and honest to yourself? That's what I imagine all of this is, It's like another one of those imagination hats that you put on that help live your life in a certain way. You can adopt whatever it is for you, but for me, that's one that I like, It's imagine we created this together, and we created all of these great things to do. All of the bad things too, and we didn't know how they would all affect us, but the point of it was to get an education and try to do it without hurting each other, And so I try to live my life that way as much as I can.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, I think so. I like it.
Yeah. Man, so letting go, accepting, you said love is the ultimate truth.
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What does that mean to you? Love is the ultimate truth.
Love is the ultimate truth, and truth ultimately is love. It just means, why do you do anything? I mean, why are you doing this podcast?
I ask myself that sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's just,
You
I just feel called.
I just feel called to bug you on that, but yeah.
I just feel called to do it.
Yeah, you love it.
Like there's times where I'm like, fuck this, man.
Yeah.
But of course, with anything.
Sure. And when I say love, it has different connotations. Like people put like romantic love in there. When I say love, I just mean genuine appreciation is what I mean. Why are you doing any of this? I would challenge and say, at the end of the day, the most basic reason, the most fundamental reason you're doing anything you're doing is for love. Love of something. Love of yourself, love of family, love of the things you may be able to provide your family at someday, love of the way you may feel being able to provide for your family in that way. I think love is the ultimate reason we do anything, And if we're not, even in the moments when you say you're being mean to someone or something, or you think that way, there's still a reason underneath that. That's a reason from love. Like you're trying to teach someone a lesson to improve themselves or something. It all comes back to what's the fundamental reason, and it's really to improve things. But the more that you understand you're not separate from that other person, the more you'll approach with love as opposed to, more of a punitive approach, I think. Well,
I like that articulation. It makes you think
yeah,
about
I get very wordy with some of this.
That's good. No, that's like,
That's a throwback from my corporate days.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, everything you do is for love. Like,
Yeah, man, I think so.
Yeah, that's
Not even think so. That is my experience. That's why I do everything. Now, everyone's got to ask themselves, but I would challenge any question, any answer that doesn't ultimately come up with what love really is. That's the essence of all of this, I think. I know.
So this is what I see in you, because we're a mirror, right? So I see that you see people the way I see people, which is you see the good in people. Yeah. That's your default.
Sure.
Like, because there's some people that I've known personally who they're just so skeptical about everyone because their default is something's wrong with this person, right?
Yeah.
But I think you see people as you see more good in them than negative. Is that correct?
I don't know that I'd put it like that exactly. I think I see what I would call as an objective. We're complex people. We're balanced people. Yeah. No one is 100% good all the time or anything like that. We're complex. And really it's a judgment about what we think is good or not. What someone may think as a good quality within them, I might look at them and say, yeah, I don't think that's such a great quality. But this is sort of perspective-based still, I make all the judgments that I made before, except I let go of many of them very easily because I realize people judge me the same way, and often those judgments aren't accurate. So as much as I can let go of the judgment, not to say that I don't guard myself because, we are people who are always trying to make sure that we feel safe and secure, and sometimes that means we might try to take something from someone else to feel that way. So that doesn't mean I don't see that behavior in other people and acknowledge it's there. It just means I don't demonize them for that exactly. I protect myself from that, but realize that's coming from a place of misunderstanding, feeling like anything that they take from someone else, somehow makes them better. I think it makes them worse. Now you've got that as a trapping, because what you've done to anyone else, and I know what I've done to people in the past. So that's the sort of thing that holds on to you, until you're able to let that go. So whatever it is that people do that's negative, it's really hurting themselves in the long run. I really feel to get to a point of balance and contentment in your life, you have to be pretty objective about even your own behavior. I have to be objective about my own behavior in order to improve the things that I feel like I'm lacking on, And people have to do that. And it's okay to see that in someone else and reflect that sometimes and be like, hey, you sure you're doing this thing all right? Because, you want to have accurate reflections about your performance. But at the end of it all, you're your own judge. You've got to be the objective judge for yourself because no one else knows your experience. So whatever they judge may be inaccurate, based on your own experience.
Yeah. And that's really important because if you're basing it on other people's experiences, it's not good, right? It has to be on your experience.
Yeah, because again, it's false knowledge at that point. The claim that you are an expert at anything that you haven't experienced is a false claim. Yeah. What you're an expert at is reading a book on something. It doesn't mean that you understand it, that you understand it to a point that you've experienced it and integrated it. It just means you've understood some text.
And people can sniff that out as well.
Yeah,
like
I think they can
sense that.
Yeah, it's like legitimate. It's like when I used to race motorcycles, There's a point I became like an instructor, but I wasn't really as fast as a lot of the racers. And that changed the day I became a racer because suddenly all of the training I was communicating was made legitimate because I had the direct experience. Now I could talk about lean angle and how much to put your body off the gas tank or whatever it is, as opposed to when I was just consistent and safe and slow. I was telling everybody the right way to do it was absolutely the wrong way, but you don't know this until you have the experience yourself. the people you're training don't even know this really. I mean, they might be able to sense something, but they don't know either. So now you're just propagating false information. Experience is the way for me. Direct experience is no better educator.
And that's who you learn from, right? So when you want to
Yeah.
learn something, you learn from someone who has the experience.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
go out if they're willing to. Try to meet them at the level they're able to meet you at. Like when you're a blue belt going with a white belt, and the white belt's doing something like, yeah, you're gonna get hurt doing this. Now as a blue belt, you could execute that maneuver perfectly and know you're gonna injure this white belt. But you being a blue belt, having the experience of whatever that injury is, you let that go at that point because you're like, all right, this training isn't worth you breaking your bone at this point. I'm gonna let it go. Now, if you're in a competition training, that might be something different. Now, you can't think so much about the other person's longevity. You're on your A game, focusing for that national competition or whatever. But in training, yeah, the best person to go with is always the one with the experiential knowledge. Yeah, like I don't want to put claims on anyone's name. Like Jordan Peterson is like a psychologist that I like a lot. And it's partly because he has a lot of direct experience with the stuff he's talking about.
Absolutely.
I'll listen to him any day, Not to say I agree with everything he says, just like Sam Harris, but and I love when the two of them, mix it up. When they're talking about truth and God, man, I'll eat that shit all day. I'll be popcorn like, oh yeah, I love that. And I love their idea. They had this one series where they did something called steel manning. As opposed to like in corporate world, we do a lot of, straw manning. We present the weakest argument for the other side. I liked it when they were presenting the strongest argument for the other side. That's like, I'm going to take away all your weaknesses because I'm going to see what you're saying, and I'm going to add my knowledge on top of that and really frame your position in the best possible light. And then you do that for me, and now we have the debate, Man, that's such an awesome debate because all of the little gotchas they get rid of. We're not trying to trap each other. We're just trying to get to the truth of the matter. I love that style of competition. Yeah.
Yeah, that's much better. Much easier.
I agree. It's more authentic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and because of that, the two of them I listen to. Now I think I listen to Jordan a little bit more because I'm a little bit more on a spiritual path than I am on sort of a path of logic exactly. So Jordan's sense about divinity and what God is kind of speaks to me a little bit more closely than Sam's, but I loved that whole series that they did a few years ago.
Yeah. And that's the thing I learned about just content in general is it's about who you are, right? Like, why should I listen to you?
Sure.
Right? It's like, what experience do you have which makes me want to listen to you?
Yeah. and even on top of that, I mean, it's self-promotion is good, but yeah, why listen to me? I'm going to present myself the way I think is authentic, and people will, gravitate toward it or not, and that's up to them. That's their right.
Yep.
But for me to be anything other than authentic, who I am, it's not possible. It just tears me down into something that's unreal. Yeah, I'd rather be real with everyone than unreal. And even that comes with stages. What are people ready to hear? What communication am I ready to offer, and what are they ready to hear? Is really the question.
What do you think the lesson was that was sent to you, which is why you had the accident? What was the lesson, do you think?
This is a weird, like I remember Paul Stamets, was it Paul? It was one of Joe Rogan's guests even. This is one of these weird, unexplainable things. I can't really explain why things happen the way they happen. How, it's like the most impossible, for me to be here in this moment, for you to be here in this moment even, how many things had to line up for us to be here now? I mean, in terms of your parents, your conception, all of these things that are, trillions to one type odds. And then my trillions to one type odds. And here we are, together talking about this thing. There's so much intelligence beyond human intelligence, plant intelligence, universal intelligence that we just don't understand that's put us here for some reason. Who the heck knows why? But I think there's something greater than I can articulate, that is occurring, a field that we don't understand, communication paths between, people and other living things that we don't understand how it works, but absolutely a legitimate technology, just not understood. I think that's, who knows?
Yeah, you think it's God's plan?
Yeah,
God's plan for your life?
Yeah, and who is God? Let's come back to that again. It absolutely is. God is everything in existence. For me to be here, everything in existence had to support me to get here. So it's absolutely existence's plan for me to be here for some reason, you know. Now that's not to say we don't have choice in the matter. I make a choice every day. I know this is an area Sam Harris, debates as well too. There absolutely is free choice. We have free choice to the extent we understand what our choices are. So it's this weird paradox of free will and somehow destiny that we just don't understand how the two interact, This moment is what's here right now. There's nothing else here but this right now. And that's a beautiful thought to me. That gives me comfort. And I know that gives other people discomfort at times. But it's something to question, why does that make you uncomfortable this moment,
Yeah.
I'm so comfortable in this moment. Yeah.
It's like the power of now, right?
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, I love all that stuff. I remember there's one point, Eckhart Tolle, I would watch him, and, my sister would make fun of me. I would talk and really think about the right word to choose in the moment. And there's something weird about that. Like, I don't speak that way now, but part of that is in the process still. Like, I'm still always searching for the most correct way to say something. And there's something about giving yourself time and space to just have the thought and process it and look at it and be aware of it before you just let your mouth run with the pre-canned thing all the time. Really be thoughtful about the language and the communication. And don't worry so much about what people think of me, the way I talk. It's just the way I talk. And I'll improve it if I think I need to. I'll look at this at some point later and be like, oh yeah, you said too many yahs or this or whatever. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and I'm happy for it.
Yeah, it's like an overall acceptance for who you are.
Absolutely.
And not judging yourself, because that's what it is, right? It's like if you judge yourself, that's like a sign of self-hatred almost.
If I can't accept myself and love myself, how do I expect anyone else to be able to do that? It starts with me. If I can't love myself, how can I expect someone else to love me? Self-love is the first love. And from there, everything else blossoms, I think.
Yeah, it's a journey to cultivate that self-love.
Yeah,
it is a journey.
To understand how to cultivate it, I agree. Yeah. It's a journey.
Yeah,
and it's like, it took me 40-something years to get to this point. I wish that this was something that we taught earlier to even children, like just teaching them another way. Like, you don't have to go grab the thing that's outside all the time. You can be comfortable in yourself with whatever you have. Without trying to be this other thing because it makes someone else happy, or because you think in order to get love, you've got to do what someone else thinks you should do as opposed to what you think you should do, If we could somehow change that, I think society might be a little bit better place. We're in a pretty good place, but there's a lot of stuff that's pretty effed up, I think, still.
Yeah, it's this constant thought of like happiness is outside of myself.
Yeah, especially now that, with a lot of these capital structures going through difficulty because of COVID and everything else, I think it's giving a lot of people pause about what's the important thing and what's not important, And I think that's good. It definitely, to me, feels like, during this whole COVID in some weird way was like a wake-up call to people to think about what's really important to you, So yeah, it's I'm thankful for that people are taking a little deeper look there.
It's like attachment, what the Buddha says, right? Attachment is the root of all suffering.
Of course, every attachment makes you a prisoner. The more that you can, and unattached is not the way, like, not in a apathetic kind of way. Unattached meaning there's nothing that I need outside of myself to be complete. Like that way, Somehow I was born, and as difficult as this life is, as fragile as humans are, somehow we keep making it, and we keep, we're like the weakest of the animals, in terms of like, pound for pound type of thing. And yet somehow look at us. How did we get here? It's just a strange thing to me, So that to me in itself is divine in some way, that we're here thinking all these weird things and getting to, we think dictate, the future of the earth, but I think plants, animals, and bacteria have something else to say about that.
Yeah. So what's your business? Like, in case people are watching, they're wondering if they're watching this far. Like,
Sure.
What's been your business background? Like, just for a quick summary.
Well, I grew up in high school. I mean, I was always like good at what I would say rational type of subjects, math, science, that type of thing. I was never very good at like creative subjects. I thought I wasn't good at it at the time. I remembered wanting to be a physical therapist in high school, but I grew up poor, like a bunch of kids from New York, and thinking to myself, I'm gonna look. We had a career fair in high school. I was like, I'm gonna look at the job that pays the most. And the two of them, one of them was doctor. Doctor paid something like $150,000 a year at the time. This was like back in the early '90s or something like that. But it took 8 years. I was like, oh man, that's way too long. And then engineering paid something like 100 grand, and it took 4 years. I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do, engineering, because I can make the most money in the shortest amount of time or whatever. And I was happy learning, the topics and everything. I graduated with like, a basic B average, nothing great, City College in New York. I interned at Verizon for a couple years. Did great at the like practical level. Anytime you gave me a problem, I could figure it out. Maybe not using theory, but using like practical knowledge. I was good at that. I was terrible at like theoretical subjects, but I excelled at Verizon easily. Just like I was a good bullshitter. I was good at being a politician, like in a good way. Like the smile was always there. Like I could make you feel good about yourself, even if I didn't think all the best things. But I could get the best out of you. So that worked for a while. Graduated the ranks of Verizon to the point I became an executive there, a director with them. But realizing the work just wasn't fulfilling. I would go to my job, I would do great things, but I really was not present in the way that I knew I could be at something I really wanted to do. I left Verizon after a while. I opened a trucking company. Had like 20-something trucks at one point. But yeah, this was a point where I got into a bad deal, and I could see, man, there's no way I'm going to be able to keep making these payments, like, for the next 15 years with the bank and the small business. Yeah, and that was a point where I started looking into meditation and I tried to get over my anxieties and all that. But yeah, after that, being in the hospital, I started doing more trading online, investing. Got pretty good at that, able to kind of manage my expenses at that point. Even now to the point, I'm retired now. I collect Social Security from my disability. This is the money I put into Social Security, there's like people have misunderstandings about am I getting a handout, or this is my money that I put into Social Security, I get back being disabled. But that doesn't, I have to subsidize that still. That doesn't make all the money for me. So I use my retirement savings to make money from there. Right now, the market is crap, so luckily I've got enough saved up. I'm just chilling out. That's why I'm in Bali. Bali is like so cost effective for me. It's a beautiful place. It's got sort of that spiritual component that I like, a lot of meditation, yoga practice out here. I can live out here like in perpetuity. To tell you the truth, man, it's but
for real.
Yeah, but I like to mix it up too. I'm probably gonna travel around a little bit, go a few places, Portugal, maybe try Russia, South America. My sister's getting married in December, so I'm gonna go to her wedding. I haven't been back to Guyana, the country I was born in a long time, so I'm looking forward to going back there and meeting my dad for the first time, my two sisters on my dad's side for the first time. His whole family, his wife, everything. I call her mom too.
That's huge. Meeting your dad for the first time.
That's huge.
And how old are you now?
47.
47. Wow.
47, man.
Black don't crack.
Yeah, that's right, man, baby. That's good. I like to, put on different faces sometimes. Look like Will Smith or The Rock. Or,
You're very close to Will Smith's age, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I like him, and I won't go there, but I think his wife looks a little bit like my ex-wife a little bit. But yeah, that's another thing. It's weird. He looks like me, and his wife looks a little bit like my wife. I always think that's a little weird, but
yeah. So you're meeting him for the first time.
Yeah,
At 47 years old.
first time.
What's that like, man?
I don't know. It's going to be cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be awesome to be able to explore that. You know, it's like when you see anyone. You know, when I look at my nephew, even though he doesn't look as much as me as he does as his sister, I see myself in him all the time. I think of myself as that little kid growing up. So to actually see, you know, half of my genetic pool that I haven't, you know, had access to in that way, to be able to see them and just kind of feel that deeper connection, like what's there. I'm interested in that, and not just them. I mean, even beyond them, the larger environment. That's a big part of my gene pool. I mean, both my mother and my father were born in Guyana. That's a lot of my genetic history there. So for me, that's quite an exploration to like get into. So I'd like to spend maybe a month.
How come it took so long? How come it's been 47 years since?
Yeah, well, I thought my father was someone different. And I remember at one point I was having some issues with cataracts, and so I had done an ancestry test, you know, just trying to see like what things am I susceptible for, not knowing who my father was. And then someone popped up on my ancestry on my father's side as a first cousin or something. I was like, oh, but you know, this person is not Indian. It doesn't match what I thought was my genetics at all. And then the person contacted me, you know, trying to say, hey, we match up, but, you know, do you know why we matched? Well, like, I have no clue, but I'm curious too. And turns out, yeah, that was my father.
Wow.
That was some wild stuff.
It must have been you must have been ecstatic, man.
I was so ecstatic, man. My mom was like, oh my God. She was like so worried. I'm like, Mom, what you worried about? This is like good information. I know who my dad was. She was like, you know, I don't want nobody to talk about me. I don't want anybody to talk about you. I'll punch them in their face if they do. Nah, it's all good. Yeah.
Damn. Are you going to film it when you meet him?
Maybe it's like for me, it's you know, I've played with the idea, especially being in Bali. I've met more people who do sort of a digital nomad type of lifestyle. So it's something curious for me, you know, even some of the things I'm into, like art, music, technology, you know, setting up a small business here would be fairly straightforward. And with the knowledge I have now, I could set that, you know, so easily, so cheaply. And being, you know, a digital nomad type to be able to kind of promote whatever it is I'm doing is something that attracts me to a little bit of a degree. But, you know, when I look at the setup and everything else, I think, like, do I have the patience to do all this? I'm not so sure. And do I need to? I'm not so sure either.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's fun to explore, and I might do a little bit just to see how it works out. But, yeah, that would be fun to kind of put that out there a little bit. I like poetry, painting, music, that type of stuff. So
you got your hobbies.
yeah, I like anything that is expressive in a very authentic way. I like that. Yeah.
Awesome. So last question before we wrap up. So what is, I ask every guest this, by the way. What is the meaning of life in your own words?
The meaning of life. There's like a simple, you know, way to say that and a complex way. Life is learning who you are. You know, learning who you are. I know who I am. Nobody can tell me any different because I know through my experience who I am. And I'm still learning aspects to my own self. Abilities and easiness with certain things that I didn't even know was there before because I wasn't in a state of presence. But being in a state of really here has opened up so many new avenues for me, you know? And I continue to learn those things, but I know who I am. You know, even if I don't know what all of this is, I know who I am. And I think if more people spent some time really learning about who they are objectively, letting go of their false concepts of who they are even, I think it would multiply their abilities by so much. And maybe not the abilities that they thought, you know. Like what I'm good at now is so different than what I used to be good at before. But it's because I love the things I do now, and that's what like helps them to thrive and become even stronger in those abilities. It's just knowing who I am and being comfortable there, you know. And whatever happens, let it be. It was going to be anyway, so I don't have to worry about that. Whatever life throws my way, I know it's also throwing me some tools to help me with whatever it is, you know. So for that, I'm quite thankful, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So
Super awesome.
if people want to find out more about you, where do they go?
That's a good question. I don't even, man. All I got is my Instagram, I guess. Yeah, Dale Blackman on Instagram.
right,
And on there, all I got is photos of all the stuff I do, some poetry, just me having a good time, and maybe at some point, there's some things that I still have sort of churning in the background that I'm cooking up. I was working on a nonprofit back in the States. I might change that a little bit different. I don't have to do a nonprofit by the U.S. government standards if I do it somewhere else, but. There's a few things that I'm curious about. I love helping people who don't know they have an ability, especially people who have a disability like me. I look at this one kid, Jerry Diaz. I used to listen to him when I was back in the hospital trying to get better. And I watch him and what he does. He's a paraplegic, and he does welding and all this shit. He climbs upstairs and stuff. He's part of the reason I do what I do now. He was one of the people that made me know it was possible to do more than what the doctors were saying I was able to do. And I know the doctors say that because they want to put you in a mindset so that you're not disappointed when it does happen. So I think they give you the pessimistic view. I think that's probably the right way to do it. But when you know that you can get beyond that by seeing someone else and how did he get beyond it? He just had that attitude it wasn't going to stop him, So it's not going to stop me either.
That's what's up, man. That's
really what's
mindset.
up.
That's the strength in your mindset
for sure, man.
is really the main thing that I think people will take from this is how strong your mindset is.
Yeah, and it didn't come from me. It came from people like Jerry Diaz, Max Emilio. He's a guy who does Jiu Jitsu too. He was a guy. He is a brown belt as well, but he's a true paraplegic brown belt. He got to brown belt while paraplegic. So
wow.
I met him.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we went out. We did a few little expositions or whatever, and we were training together and stuff like that. So he also put it back at me dude, man, you're not stuck here. Look at what these dudes are doing. You can do this shit too, So if I can be a little piece of that to someone else, man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's that inspiration, passing the baton on.
Yeah, and now I'm super glad I told the whole truth because that would have been messed up if someone
Yeah, it's gonna be this is gonna be on the internet forever. So you better have told the truth.
Well, it's all right, if it's the truth, it should be out there. That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, Dale, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it too, man, brother. Thank you.
All right, so that's Dale Blackman from Tampa, Florida, right?
Sun's out, guns out. Yeah,
Florida. Tampa, Florida.
Yeah,
all right, cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one. It was 2 hours.
I enjoyed it.
2 hours of epic wisdom.
That's all.
And we're going to keep on coming. Yeah, man, exactly. So, see you guys in the next one. Cheers.
Thank you.